Do I turn my microphone off after a question? Okay. Sorry. Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for the April 2nd election. Candidates for the Town of Grant Supervisors are featured in this part of tonight's forum. My name is Karen Schill, and I'm representing the League as your moderator. To our live viewing audience on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, welcome, and please call in your questions to 423-0441. To our studio audience, welcome, and thank you for your submitted questions. The League thanks the candidates for their willingness to run for office. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not support nor endorse any candidate or political party. The candidates for the Town of Grant Supervisors here are Heather Grys-Luecht and Jim Yetter. Dale Winkler is also on the ballot. There are 3 candidates running for 2 positions. Earlier this evening, our 2 candidates drew for order of speaking. They will have 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks and 2 minutes to respond to the questions in rotating order. Please submit questions to the candidates that are directed to the office and not personalities. Only questions pertaining to issues will be used, and questions will also be screened to avoid duplication. And now we will begin with opening statements with Heather Grys-Luecht.
Thank you, Karen. Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and thank you to everyone in the audience, and Jim for agreeing to be here as well. So my name is Heather Grys-Luecht. I was born in the town of Grant. Lived there until I graduated from high school, and then I left, went away to school, got a degree in biology, went to school for firefighting and EMT, and then eventually came back to the central Wisconsin area where I've lived since 2005 and have worked in nonprofit organizations in healthcare, in county government, in higher education, and have had a lot of experience leading in those types of organizations. I'm looking forward to hopefully serving as town supervisors who have an opportunity to serve the community in a way that's fundamental to the issues that affect people's lives and to be able to help problem solve.
Thank you. Jim Yetter.
My name's Jim Yetter. I was also born in the town of Grant. I've been there most all of my life. There's 5 years I moved out, moved into the town of Grand Rapids. I am one of the first responders from the town of Grant. I am also a first responder with the town of Grand Rapids and a firefighter for the town of Grand Rapids. I worked for 43 years for Consolidated, Stora Enso / Verso, New Page, whatever the latest flavor of the day was in that paper mill. So, and I'm also running to see if we can improve the status quo and keep things running in a harmonious way in our town.
Thank you. Our first question will be posed to Jim Yetter. In your opinion, what is the biggest stumbling block facing the town of Grant? What needs to be done, and what are your plans to address it?
I think the biggest stumbling block we have right there now is road aid. We're always short on road aid and getting our roads fixed in a timely and proper manner. And I do not know exactly at this juncture how to fix it. This county tax that the county passed, vehicle tax, we're not going to get any of that. So I'm not exactly sure how we can secure more funds for road aid right now.
Thank you. Heather Grys-Luecht.
So I think that the biggest stumbling block that I see that the town faces right now is that we don't use all the data that we have. We generate a lot of data, but we don't necessarily use it to manage what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will be posed to Heather Grys-Luecht first, and it deals with ATVs and roads. And I understand there is a referendum on April 2nd in the town of Grant dealing with ATVs and roads. So the question is, what is your position on ATVs using roads in the town of Grant?
Thanks, Karen. So I think that the responsibility of a supervisor isn't really to place my position above everyone else's. That the responsibility really would be to learn what the position is of all of the stakeholders that are involved in the town, the residents, maybe some clubs that are interested in having roads open, the taxpayers, in ensuring that we're doing what those individuals want, making sure that we're giving them an opportunity to tell us what they're interested in having happen in the town related to ATVs and roads, and to assess the impacts, assess what the return on investment would be, and to then do what those stakeholders ultimately would like us to do.
Thank you. Jim Yetter.
I feel pretty much the same way. I mean, my personal opinion should not count because it's the taxpayers of the town that are actually paying our wages, and we're the people representing them. So what they have to say as a majority is what we should be doing. And yes, I would like to weigh a little more on seeing if we have a bigger economic value of allowing ATVs, UTVs, whatever, on all of our streets. The trail that is open now is, very highly used at times, and at times there's nobody there. So,
Thank you. Our next question will be posed to Jim Yetter first. If elected, how would you schedule the workload for the employees?
Well, the proper way to schedule the workload for the employee is to meet with them every day and discuss what needs to be done, what has been done, any emergency situations that has arisen from the night before, and make sure that we both prioritize the day's work.
Thank you. Heather Grys-Luecht.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. And any time I can repeat questions. If elected, how would you schedule the workload for the employees?
So I agree with Jim. I think establishing priorities is important. Using, again, that data that we have, looking at the work that needs to be done, looking at historical data as far as how long does work typically take to do, looking at the labor force that's there to do the work, whether those workers are part-time, full-time, where they are in relation to the budget in terms of any overtime status or emergencies that have occurred. And then make sure that we are meeting all of the expectations of the town residents through those established priorities.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Heather Grys-Luecht first. Do you think the town should have a wheel tax?
Should the town have a wheel tax? So that's a good question. I would need to have more information about what that would look like, about what that would go to fund, how that would be implemented, and what ultimately we would do with that money. I need more information.
Thank you. Jim Yetter.
I'm going to repeat the same answer. It's one hand says yes we should, the other hand says no we shouldn't. We need a lot more information on the wheel tax as to how we're going to spend it, how we're going to collect it, and what it's going to apply to. And
thank you. Our next question will go to Jim Yetter first. In your opinion, how has the recycling effort been going? What problems still face the town of Grant in that area?
In my opinion, I believe the recycling program in the town of Grant is going quite well. There are still some people not using it properly, but it's just a machine in the works. So.
Thank you. Would you like the question repeated? In your opinion, how has the recycling effort been going, and what problems still face the town of Grant?
Sure. So based on the data that I have, I understand that the town recycles over 300 pounds per capita a year, where the standard for towns is about 84 pounds per capita. So I think that's a phenomenal success. Sustainability, I think, is an important issue for the longevity of the town and all of the lands in our state. So certainly, if I am elected, I would like to get more information about how the program is being utilized, and also some input from the citizens about what we could do to improve that program.
Thank you. This was addressed earlier, but it's been asked a few times, and the question goes to Heather Grys-Luecht first. What ideas do you have to gain more money for roads?
To gain more money for roads. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an interesting question in terms of township and revenue stream. So certainly a wheel tax obviously has been questioned directly, but I think that the town needs to look at other opportunities that might exist, whether that's in the form of utilizing grant money that is specifically designated for roads, or using grant money or partnerships to fund other programs that could then be revenue streams to come into the town. But certainly probably a lot to do to look at in terms of how do we get more funds to apply to roads.
Thank you. Jim Yetter, what ideas do you have to gain more money for roads?
That's a tough one. Yes, the wheel tax, I'm sure, would help us out in that respect, but like I say, I'm not 100% in favor of a wheel tax on our town residents. I would like to see if there was some way to go in partnership with, whether it be more state aid, county aid, maybe the Ho-Chunk Nation aid somewhere along the line, if there's some way to incorporate something like that. Some kind of cooperation between agencies.
Thank you. Our two candidates present here tonight, if you're just viewing, are candidates for Town of Grant Supervisors. We have Heather Grys-Luecht and Jim Yetter. Third candidate, Dale Winkler, will also be on the April 2nd ballot, with 3 candidates running for 2 positions. Continuing with our questions, and I want to remind our viewing audience, you can phone those questions in at 715-423-0441. The next question will go to Jim Yetter. In your opinion, are there problems with tax delinquency matters in the town?
I do not believe so. I haven't heard of any, so in my opinion, I would say at this point, no.
Thank you. Heather Grys-Luecht.
So my opinion is that I don't have enough information about that. I would expect that there's probably some hard data that we could look at, but I am unaware of what that is.
Thank you. We have 2 questions about ambulance service. The question will go to Heather Grys-Luecht first. One question says the Town of Grant sued Portage County over practices regarding ambulance services. We lost that suit and still pay for that service we do not use. What can be done? And then the other question is, in your opinion, what is the status of the ambulance issue? I hope I'm not combining 2 separate things.
Sure. So I think the status of the issue you answered with your explanation of the first question, right? So there was a lawsuit. The town was not successful in that lawsuit, and so now we continue along the status quo, which is paying for 2 services, one of which we do not utilize because of response time, because the town feels that the value of the lives of its residents are more important than a response time that's 30 plus minutes, particularly in those critical situations that really are when life and limb really is at risk. So I think what needs to happen now is that the conversation needs to remain open with the county. I think that there's some new leadership in place at the county. There is maybe an opportunity for some new service models. And I think that coalition building maybe with some of our fellow towns within the county is important, because the question has been raised, and I think that the town has done a good job demonstrating that we feel that there's some value to people's lives and looking at the services that are there to help protect lives. So I think the conversation has started, but I certainly don't think it's over yet.
Thank you. Jim Yetter, and the question is regarding the status of ambulance service.
Well, yes, we did sue the county and we lost. My opinion is we still need to work with the leadership of the county and see if there's a way that the fee that we're paying to the county, that they will either reimburse us for the fee we are paying for our other ambulance service, or take over the payment to that ambulance service for us and get it either in with the county-wide ambulance service, or just eliminate the county-wide ambulance service totally, because like Heather says, there are other townships in our county that are not happy with the county-wide ambulance service.
Thank you. Our next question will be posed to Jim Yetter regarding road beds. Do you believe that road beds can, I think that says road beds. Road beds can simply be raised, or must roads be mucked out to improve them? Support your answer.
That's a two-sided answer to me, because there are some roads that, yes, we can just raise and they'll be fine. But there are a lot of roads in our township that have a lot of muck in them that need to be mucked out, because that muck will just keep working its way up. So the roads in the high sand country, if we just put a sand lift on them and raise them up, that's going to work fine. But the ones out in the marshier, swampier area where there's a lot of organic material, that has to come out, because that's going to retain the water under our roadbed and going to deteriorate our roadbed anyway.
Thank you. Heather Grys-Luecht. So I really agree with Jim. I think that it's dependent on the road. I think that each road has merit in looking at on a case-by-case basis. I think that this is where the engineers come in. You know, we need to use some of the science and the data that we can get about individual roads to determine what needs to happen to each road that's unique from other roads and unique from different areas. So I think that again, it's got to be road by road. The answer might be either one of those, dependent on location and construction of the road.
Thank you. Our next question involves term limits, and it will go to Heather Grys-Luecht first. Are you in favor of term limits or changing the length of time of supervisors for the town of Grant?
Sure. I think that term limits are a positive thing. I noticed that the question didn't refer to the length of term limits, but I think of management experiences that I've had when there's been changes in an organization, and you know, I've had to work with staff to say maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing to have a breath of fresh air come in and have new ideas and have things changed up a little bit. So certainly I think term limits have merit. Thank you. Jim Yetter.
I also agree. I think, yes, there should be a term limit on them, whether it be four elections or 5 elections or somewhere in that area. But yes, I do believe we should have a term limit.
Thank you. Our next question, it might be final question if we don't have any more submissions. The issue is the issue of heavy agricultural trucks. To Jim Yetter, in your opinion, has the issue of heavy agricultural trucks using our town roads been resolved effectively?
I do not believe it's been resolved effectively. We do have roads in our town that have the IOH, the implementation of husbandry ordinances on them, but I do know that farmers have been running heavy equipment and trucks down roads that are not marked as such. There's got to be a way to work with these farmers and law enforcement and whoever else to keep them off of our lighter roads.
Thank you. The question to Heather Grys-Luecht: how has the issue of heavy agricultural trucks using our town roads been resolved? Has it been resolved effectively?
Sure. So I don't know that it's been resolved effectively yet, and I think that it's really, there's a couple of different perspectives on this, though. I think one is the IOH and those large agricultural pieces of equipment that are used to work fields, but I think that another issue is some of the large trucks that are maybe used to transport certain products that are spread on fields that have used roads that they're deteriorating those roads. So I think this is it's a multifaceted issue. It's not just those large discs or plows that are going down the road, but there's also trucks that are being used by businesses that are allegedly supporting agricultural practices that are also doing some things to our roads, and we need to kind of look across the continuum of everyone that's using those roads and what they're doing, and maybe how those users can support then helping keep our roads in good shape.
Thank you. This is our final question, and it will go to Heather Grys-Luecht first regarding equipment in the town. Does the town have adequate equipment? Do you have suggestions?
So I'm presuming that the question means adequate, if the town owns adequate equipment to do the work that it needs to do. And the answer is I'm not sure. I think that were I elected supervisor, I would have a number of things that I would want to look at and assess off the bat to see what I really would think about that. We have a number of large pieces of equipment, but I don't know that we're necessarily utilizing them to their fullest extent to capture some of that data that might then help us prioritize workload, help us manage roads, and do some of the other things that we need to do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Jim Yetter.
Well, this is kind of a catch-22 question to me also, because I've been in our shop there and I've worked with the guys on the crews. As far as snowplow equipment, yes, we have plenty of snowplow equipment. Right now it's all in decent shape. One brand new truck, another one that's only a year old, and the other one is still in good shape. Plus we have our grader when we need it. But we also have a backhoe loader tractor there that's seen better days that we're still using, but we're short of funds to replace equipment like that, so we have to make it last until it won't anymore, which is starting to fail on us. I mean, we got to figure out some way to replace all this stuff when it starts getting old.
Thank you. And thank you, candidates, for answering those questions. And to our viewing audience and our studio audience, thank you for submitting those. It's now time for our closing statements of 2 minutes, and we will start with Jim Yetter.
Well, I guess in closing, I'm just thanking everybody in the town that has voted for me in the past, and I would like your continued support for the next term. And I hope I can do a good job for everybody.
Thank you. Heather Grys-Luecht.
Thanks, Karen. I want to say thank you again to the League of Women Voters and for the town residents that have provided questions and the audience that's here to listen to our answers and give us, I think, probably things to think about as we move into and past this next election. To the residents of the town, you know, I'm hoping that you're able to support me on April 2nd. I really am looking forward to the opportunity to help advance the town, helping work on some of the fundamental issues that we have, you know, and I want to uphold the principles of fiscal transparency, data-informed decision-making, integrity, honesty, accountability, and civility in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Jim Yetter and Heather Grys-Luecht for meeting the voters here tonight. They will be on the April 2nd general election ballot in the town of Grant for the position of supervisor, running for 2 positions. This concludes our forum this evening. Stay tuned. Oh, don't stay tuned. This is the only portion we'll have tonight. We will be featuring Wednesday and Thursday forums for other local races, including various school boards, Wisconsin Rapids Council on Wednesday and Thursday. Thank you, Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, for providing us the coverage of tonight's forum. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the volunteers who helped out tonight, and a reminder to all of our viewers, vote on April 2nd. Thank you.